You know?
And we'll start this right there, man. I mean,
Cool.
yeah. So did you grow up in Vancouver though?
Yeah, well, no, I did, but I've been here over half my life now. But I actually grew up just outside of Toronto in Ontario.
Okay.
And for those that are in the other parts of the world that don't understand Canada, just so you know, that's just north of Michigan. So you have Detroit right across the bridge there.
Right.
There's a very industrious town, St. Catharines, and then Toronto was just a little bit further in. So, but that's where I grew up as a kid. Turned 18 when I graduated high school, and I was like, "Peace out, I'm gone." I moved all the way from the east to the west, and I never looked back. That's just where I've hung my hat, quite literally and figuratively, since 1995. Just to date myself now too. Like I'm.
I mean, was that something you always wanted to do? Was go west, or?
I love the mountains. I really do, and I was always attracted to the mountains, but also the ocean. Like growing up in Ontario, it's a lot of lakes. We have Lake Ontario, one of the Great Lakes. Awesome, sure, it's nice, but it's not the ocean. Like it's very different. And so yeah, there was that draw, but also the idea of starting anew as my own person. Like I think we all sort of go through that stage. We hit that adult age, we graduate high school, and then we're left thinking, what now? What do I do now?
Exactly.
And for me, it was like, well, I don't want to stay in small town Ontario. I want to go and have my own life. And I wanted to go somewhere where no one would know me. I didn't know anybody here. And I was like, okay, let's go to Vancouver. And fortunately for me, I got into UBC, the university here as well. So that made the transition a little bit easier, especially with my parents. It's like, well, I got into school here, so bye. Yeah. I might come back for a visit, maybe, and, but yeah, anyways, that's neither here nor there. But did you grow up?
So basically I grew up in a really small rural area about an hour south of Virginia Tech, like I was telling you. So like farmland, no stoplights, where everybody knows everybody, two small general stores. You only hit, if you want to go get to a Walmart or get groceries, it's an hour drive. And
wow, it's a haul.
Yeah. So it was really, really rural for me growing up. So a lot of stuff I really wasn't exposed to, just because, my nearest neighbor was, he was pretty close, but as far as my friends and stuff, we were miles apart from each other. So it wasn't one of those movie story things where you go ride your bikes around the cul-de-sac and meet up with your friends and stuff like that. So I didn't get a lot of those interactions or friendship interactions growing up, except when I went to school. That was the only time we were all together, unless we all would do our best to get our parents to drive us around on the weekends and meet up for basketball practice or whatever. So, but no, just like what you said, though, when I graduated from college, all my friends were all doing their own thing and getting jobs and moving. Like, Charlotte's pretty close to me too. They're moving down there. So I didn't really have anywhere to go. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything going on just yet. So I said the same thing. I was like, maybe if I pick up and move to a different city, I can just start all over and do something. A whole new life. So I was just hardcore searching for, internships, jobs or whatever. And I finally got a strength conditioning internship down in Sarasota, Florida.
Cool. So, man. Oh, you went all the way down to Florida. Like
dude, it was a leap of faith for sure. Wow. Just because, I just talked to I guess my boss at the time on the phone. He's like, yeah, man, if you're interested, come on down. And this is what you're going to be here to do. And I was like, I got to do it. Why not?
Wow.
So,
how long did that last?
It lasted 6 months or so. So cool. it was one of those things that, we went through the practices, got to 6 months, and it got to be like, well, if you want to stay, we still can't really pay you, but you're welcome to stay though and keep doing it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was gonna be like, I'll hire as many people as I want if you don't want to get paid. Yeah, man. That's great though. What a learning experience. Was he a mentor as well? I would imagine he must have been a mentor for you as well.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I didn't think of him as a mentor because we were almost the same age, so a little older than me. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, he's just running the shop. This is his thing. But as we, I guess, got a little closer and everything, it's like, okay, he helped me see like his side of things, his life path, and what things worked out for him. And so, I talked about it on my last podcast that the mentors seem to be almost overrated. And maybe that's just my opinion, because that was like one of the first times I've actually felt like I had a mentor at the time. And like during college, I was thinking about professors and stuff who try to be a mentor to me. And at the time I was kind of I was a huge idiot in college. I was not thinking about my future. I was just thinking about, what are we doing tonight? Where's everybody going to be at? I kind of regret it now, but I was oblivious to it all. And I didn't recognize those signs until later in life. And I was like, damn, I missed that, I missed that door. I missed that opportunity. So,
well, I think it's cool that you mentioned that though. Like just your because you're right. The term mentor or mentorship, I guess it's like any words, right? Language. It's interesting. We all have certain relationships or emotional connections to certain words, or concepts, ideas, philosophies, if you will, right? And I know that mentorship, coaching, teaching, like we all have different relationships with these terms. But I usually say, like if the relationship with the term or the idea isn't a warm one, it's not something that you're positive for. I always say, well, why? Like, what was it? Was it because of one bad experience? Was it because, because usually it is, a lot of our trauma is rooted in experience and even our belief systems, right? Because I know there were certain things that I believed when I was younger. Do I believe them now? Not necessarily, because my perspective in life has grown. And as it's grown, my understanding has also widened, right? And but I'm curious, like with mentorship, because I saw it. I didn't get a chance to dive into the episode, but that's also why I sort of brought it up. Was based on I think it might have been one of the messages we were interacting on. But just mentorship now for you. What do you think? Like, what is it? Like, I guess what would you want at a mentorship? So, because I think that's the important thing to ask is like, if you were in a mentorship relationship, what is it that you expect out of it, right?
Yeah. So, I always look back on it now that, you watch movies or see the guys coming into a sports and, the rookies versus the veteran and the veterans showing them the way of what he did right and what he did wrong. And he's like, hey man, just don't chase the money. Don't chase this, go for the experience. And it was just like, and all this, it's always that social narrative that the rookie's like, no, man, I'm here to have a good time and I'm really good. I'm better than you. You're just old and don't know what you're talking about. And so, yeah, but I think that's what, a guidance, so to speak, that, and me just actually settling down. And not, like I said, I was an idiot in college, actually recognizing, hey, this person is taking an interest in me for whatever reason. And that he's trying to show me, what worked for him in life, him or her in life, and how he got to, be successful in their own definition of it. So that's what I think is one of the biggest things. That if it ever came back around and I had somebody come into my life like that again, it was like, ooh, yeah, okay. Maybe, and just like you said, I had a really small perspective in life and life experiences growing up. It was only just what my friends did or my parents were taught. I'm 30, I'm going to be 36 this year. So I didn't really get the internet until 2006 or so. So in college, that's right when Facebook and stuff started coming out. So yeah. I've said it before on here. They're like, I was one of those party guys in college, and so that, my parents really never drank and none of my family never really drank either. But my only experiences came from big parties. And it was like the social narrative. Let's see how much we can drink. Let's black out stuff. And it was like, coming to realizations and listening to other people and reading books and trying to broaden my perspectives in life or my horizons, whatever you want to say. It's like, it's not really all about that, man. You can go have a drink and just chill, you don't have to get blackout drunk to have cool or be fun. So that's just when I started realizing, hey, it's not always about that. I hope that kind of made sense.
No, it did. Because it's also, it alludes to this idea of role models, right? And because I think that's kind of where there might be some confusion, right? Because I think it sometimes all gets lumped in together, right?
Like a role model versus mentor.
Yeah. Because it's like, let's put it this way: mentors, I find there's often a personal relationship there. Like there's more than just observing somebody or watching what they do or reading about what they do. There's often a deeper interaction or connection. It is very much it's like someone's taking the time to not only ask really clarifying questions, right? Like questions that make us think and think hard about maybe some of the choices or actions that we're making right now, and really being accountable about, well, if I'm making these decisions now, I do that today, but how's that going to influence tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, right? And sure. Really getting clear with the impact that today's decisions make. How does it affect our future? And I find mentors are really good at that. Where role modeling, it's just acting as if, I'm already living a certain way and just watch me and do what I do, and like just emulate the good habits as an example. And I think a lot of us, like, especially with the way the internet and everything works today, I mean, there's a lot of role modeling happening only based on the fact that we are so attracted to influencers, right? Especially people that have very large platforms or celebrity, right? Like we end up looking at them, watching what they do, and we often copy what they're doing. So in a way, they are in a role model role, and I've been thinking about some of these, and it's not always in a good way, right? Like sometimes we're role modeling poor habits, poor behaviors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like you said, an influencer with, 100,000 followers or 1 million followers, and it's somebody who just, fitness model who just shows her ass on Instagram and gets, and that's, it takes, I said it before that, students growing up now that their mind's a sponge. So they see that, and that's their definition of success now.
That's right.
It's like, you see, I've watched a couple of movies now, or not even movies. I was watching Prince of Bel-Air, and like one of the narrative scenes was like, how many followers do you have? It was like, 5,000. Wow. And then it's like, no, you're not successful. You say something like, you're not even, to be seen unless you get 50,000 followers or something. It was something stupid like that. I butchered that, but yeah, but I get it. I see what you're saying. Yeah. But because it's just like, you see all that, and like, you see the lifestyle and what, Instagram wants you to see and all that. It's like, yeah, that's what I want in my life. But it's really just, it's like the iceberg theory. That's what's on top of what you're seeing, all the glamour and all the cool stuff, but what's on the bottom of what's really going on underneath, Yeah.
And what's, I love that you brought that up too, because Chris, the role modeling, anybody can role model certain habits and behaviors. Like I think about our parents. Our parents not only become our mentors, our heroes, are quite literally our world, but we often learn by watching them as kids, when we're growing up, and I became very aware of this. I wasn't as aware when I was a kid about it. But now, because I have my own kids, right? And I'm like, where the hell did you learn to do? Oh, I'm like, I know where you got that habit from. Oops, and that's this role modeling aspect, because it's not always in a positive way either. And it's having that awareness, but here's the thing. I've had a lot of amazing mentors, and I got a great mentor in my life right now. He's not online. It's funny. Like he's not, what I mean by he's not online, he's online. Many of his businesses are online, but he himself has no social presence with the exception of a LinkedIn profile. That's it. And he doesn't spend a lot of time online, and but he's been a mentor, and I would have never imagined him had I not had the opportunity to connect with him, meet him, and start to have some conversations, and then realize that, yes, I would love to be mentored by you, like, are you open to that? Like, are you open to helping me? And because it's a big ask, right? We got to be vulnerable in order to say, hey, sure. Extending a hand forward and asking for help, man, it is such a humbling exercise, but it's also a scary exercise. Mm-hmm. Like putting your hand out and saying, hey, can you help me? And then, because there's always the fear, like, what if they say no? Right? It's just like going on a date. It's like, I'm going to ask this girl, and it's like, oh God, she might say no, so I don't want to do it. And I find that with those mentorship relationships, they often form the same way. It's like, got to ask, you got to set the intention, ask for help, and hope that they're open, or they have time or bandwidth, or at least the ability to support us in a way that allows us to follow a path like the one that they've already followed. And I think that's the difference. Mentors versus coaches. Sometimes we get coaching, but it's like a teacher in university that might be teaching about business, but they've never owned a business.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. You're a great teacher. You understand the mechanics and the theory behind business, but you can coach me and you can teach me, but I wouldn't come to you to mentor me.
For sure.
Because the mentor typically has real life application. And I call it the same difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is just learning stuff.
Right.
Wisdom is how we apply it,
Yeah.
And I often equate it to a tomato, tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
Like what's a tomato?
Is it for what, a fruit or vegetable?
That's right. You got it. No, you got it. It's a fruit. We learned that in school, but here's wisdom in action. Have you ever made a fruit salad? Probably.
Yeah, I would think. I'm trying to think the last time, but yeah. Well,
you make a fruit salad. Would you put a tomato in there?
Most of the time, right?
A tomato in a fruit salad?
Fruit salad, no, when you think about it like that, but most of my salads already come with tomatoes. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
But that's right, because tomatoes don't mix well with other fruits, it just doesn't. It gets all
nobody
gross and squishy.
if you want a piece of fruit, the first thing to pick is tomato. I get with, okay, I'm with you now.
So here's the thing. It's like, you're not going to put a tomato in a fruit salad because it's going to ruin the fruit salad, and that's wisdom though. Knowledge is knowing that it is a fruit. But if we go by general knowledge, well, if it's fruit, so maybe I can put it in a fruit salad. Then you try it once, it ruins the fruit salad. Now you're like, okay, now it's wisdom. I won't do that again, and I think that we all have to sort of revisit our own relationships with that, with what do we know versus what have we actually applied and learned from? Because they're very different.
I'm glad you're broken all this down, because I never really sat down and said, all right, there's a difference between a role model and a mentor. I just never really sat and thought about it. I always just thought it's kind of this coexist with each other, and it's just whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that makes total sense, exactly what you said. But you just talked about having a humbling experience. I mean, do you think all people should go through these humbling experiences? And
well, I think we learn to be humble. I think it's because I have to be honest, when I say it's a humbling experience, I remember, there's been a couple of times in my life where I've asked for help, and most specifically, it was about 12 years ago. I was really struggling with alcohol, and it became just an easy way for me to manage my stress, my anxiety. I'd have a couple of drinks, and I growing up, I had a lot of social anxiety. I was actually morbidly obese as a teenager, and a lot of people don't know this about me, but yeah, for about 5 years of my teen years, I was morbidly obese. I was a really, really big kid. Went through some big changes. Took about 2 years to realize the changes and develop a new lifestyle and literally get into a new place of health and well-being. Yeah. And it was so worth it. A lot of hard work, but it was so worth it. And it was in that process that I became excited to help others with the same transformations, changing their own lives. And because after going through it once, I was like, oh man, I had people like friends of my parents coming over and asking me, a 17-year-old at the time, if I could help them. And I'm like, I'm 17. Anytime an adult would come to me and say, hey, can we talk to you? I'd be like, what did I do? Did I break the law? Like, like, are you a cop? There's obviously these insecurities, and I would go there. And when they started to ask me for help with fitness, nutrition, even how to be more positive or about themselves, I loved it. I was like, here's my opportunity to help somebody else. And I got hooked right then and there on coaching, mentorship, teaching, supporting. And that's what set me in motion for the rest of my adult life. But here's the thing. I went from food being the way I'd manage my stress. I would eat my stress quite literally and anxiety. I learned how to deal with that to get healthy, but I still had a lot of those anxious feelings, and I still had some negative mental health challenges I was working through. And so that was all still there, and I had to figure out another way of dealing with it. And I was introduced to alcohol. And I was the weirdest thing. Give me a couple drinks, and I'd be the guy in the back corner, in the dark corner, not wanting to talk to anybody. You give me a couple drinks, I'll talk to anybody here now.
Yeah.
And, my friends used to call me Fun Guy Dai. Give them a couple of drinks, you become the fun guy of the party, but it was so frustrating, okay? Because I believe that was the only way I could interact with others, was I needed a few drinks in me. Eventually, it takes hold in a big way, because it was more than just a habit. It became very much a ritual for me in my life. Yeah. At the end of the day, if I was dealing with a lot of business and talk and stress, I'm going to have a few drinks because I deserve it. I earned it, But this is a slippery slope. It just started to become more frequent and more frequent. What was one drink now became 3 bottle, whatever. And the rest of my life started to unfold, and it really got uncontrollable for a little bit there. And that's actually where my TEDx talk picks up, is it talks a bit about this story and what I went through. But it was me asking for help. That was the starting point of me really making the changes, because I realized I couldn't do it on my own. As much as I believed I could, I didn't have strong association in my life, and I didn't have the understanding of myself to make the changes, because I wasn't even sure what the changes were, and I think, in your life, have you ever been in a place where it's like, gosh, I know the decisions I'm making are taking me further away from the person I want to be?
Oh yeah. Just what I was talking about earlier, like in college, and going down that rabbit hole of parties and drinks. And Just, you knew it's just like, you're going to wake up with a terrible hangover. You knew,
Yes.
but I was just living in that moment, just like, getting not really peer pressure, but it's like all my friends are around. We're all doing it. We're all having a great time. Everyone's talking and laughing and, and it's like, oh, this is how you have a good time. This is it. Yeah. But yeah, there's the other side of the thing in the back of your head. It's like, Chris, what the hell are you doing, dude? Probably shouldn't be doing this. What do you got going on tomorrow? Don't you have class at 8?
I love it because that internal dialogue, right? It's always there. And I'm always just fascinated by this. Just when you think about human needs, human motivation, why we do the things that we do. And I'm always amazed at the things that we often don't do, even though we know that by doing it, it's going to make life better.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have the awareness that this is the case. It's like, we don't have to fight about smoking anymore. It's like, there's enough scientific data out there that, smoking is not a healthy habit. You do it long term, it might create some real challenging health complications, maybe even cancer.
Yeah.
Right. And yet there's a lot of people out there that know this. They know it. And yet they still decide to continue to smoke.
Yeah.
But this happens in all our areas, all areas in our lives. And that's what I was with drinking, right? There's even been periods in my life where I became obsessive about working out.
Really?
To the point that it became unhealthy, right? Because it was a bit of dysmorphia, this idea of wanting to get my body in a certain place where I believed it was perfect.
Sure.
Yet perfection, anybody that's looking to get to a place that they believe to be perfect, I'm sorry to tell you, you'll probably never make it there. Okay. Because you just won't. So it's an uphill battle, but you never make it to the top. And it can be really debilitating over time and make you feel really bad about yourself because you're like, gosh, I'm never getting there. I'm never getting closer. And it became, again, obsessive. And as you can tell, I probably realized I have these tendencies, whether it was with food when I was a teenager and alcohol as I got older, and even working out when I got really into fitness, to the point of being fanatical, where it created an imbalance in my life.
Yeah. Do you have an addictive personality, do you think?
Well, see, this is interesting because once we say that, then we have to open up the conversation around addiction. And there are different schools of thought on addiction.
Okay.
And when I first came to terms that I didn't have a healthy relationship with alcohol, I went to the first place that I was aware of, because I also had friends that recommended the STEP program, right? The 12-step programs. And so I went to AA.
Yeah.
I went to 2 meetings. And I was like, this just doesn't feel right for me. Because I never felt like I was actually addicted to anything.
Okay.
But it became this thing where I would choose to do it and compromise myself in doing the action. Like, let me make this even simpler. I know there's people who are thinking, okay, where's he going with this? Well, let me go here. It became really challenging for me to just be okay with being myself. Like I was always seeking something else to change my mood.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because that kind of happens when we take certain substances, it definitely changes who we are.
For sure.
And so I became really obsessive about this change, right? And wanting to be fun guy Dai, where it became sort of my dominant. And the only way I could get there was through drinking. And so it was really just this relationship with alcohol and more importantly, myself. I never believed I was addicted. The beer never held a gun at my head and said, hey, drink me, or I'm going to shoot you. That was never the case. Like I was fully aware of my choices at all times. And I chose to prioritize that over everything else in my life. I chose to say that this is more important to me right now than my family.
Yeah.
This is more important to me than my business. This is more important to me than myself. And when you come to that grips, like really get to that place where we say, no, I'm prioritizing this over me, over everything else in my life. We have to start questioning how we value things, especially how do we value ourselves. That is what I had to learn. I had to learn to just be okay with me and be okay with just being me as I am.
Yeah.
But without any extra substances. And that's not easy, man. And I'm still on that path 12 years later. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I've learned how to do it in a much healthier way. And I haven't had a drink since then, and it started as a 1-year commitment to not drink. But then so many changes in a positive way started to happen. That after the year was done, I remember my wife saying, well, should we celebrate with a glass of wine? You did a whole year without drinking. I was like, you know what? I feel great.
Yeah.
why don't I just keep this going right now and see where I take it? And it's, almost 13 years now. Like it's just, but it was just a commitment for 1 year. That's how it started. And because a lot of people just automatically think, oh, he just doesn't drink. He's not a drinker. And it's funny when I tell people I don't drink, they automatically go to, oh, you must have had a problem. It's not like, no, I'm choosing to be healthy. No, you must have had a problem. Like it's weird, but that's usually what I get. People automatically think I must have had a drinking problem. And it's like, well, no, and I did, I guess, in a way. I had a bad relationship with alcohol. Like it became a crutch. But anyways, I talked a little fast. Sorry, I just jammed down a coffee about half an hour before talking, and I'm peaking right now.
I was like, the gym, and I was kind of like, oh man, I hope I calm down a little bit. But I mean, do you think that's just, again, a social narrative that society teaches just because, hey, get some liquid courage up, go have a couple drinks, go talk to the girl, and just, guy, like I was talking to a guy tonight about, he had some roofers come over and fix his roof or whatever, but so they smell just like alcohol, just like,
really? Oh,
said they work all day. They get into the shadow of the chimney when it's hot. Just, they sit up there like gargoyles, they're just waiting until whenever they're done. They get off, they, I guess, go straight to the bar. That's how they deal with their life, and then just like, whatever, I'll party tonight, wake up again, do it all over again. But he said this next morning they come in and he said they work hard. I mean, they get it done, but you can just smell the alcohol from the night before. So, I mean, but is that, I guess my point is that what we teach, like after a hard day's work, just go home and have your drink, sit down and relax with yourself. Or, there's even comedians who they take shots of whiskey, but before they go do the sets or whatever, it's just, but I mean, not that they're getting drunk or anything, but it's just almost like, do it to, release the tension, I guess,
And you're right, though. It does lessen our inhibitions, right? It does give us this sense of, albeit maybe not real, but it makes us feel more confident.
Sure.
And if you feel more confident, you tend to take more action, and do things. And whether they're things that you normally would do or not, that's besides the point. Regardless, that alcohol has lowered some inhibitions or some fear or concerns about doing the thing that you want to do. And I'm not here to vilify it, to say it's a bad thing, it's an evil thing. I don't want to bring morality into this. It's a personal choice. And I think the real issue at hand is that we have to take stock of who our closest people are in our lives. Who did we hang around with the most? There's quite a well-known, I would say he's a sort of a self-help guru or personal development, professional development. But his name is Jim Rohn. He passed away a number of years ago, but he had a quote where he used to talk about individuals. As individuals, we are the net sum of the 5 closest relationships in our lives.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. But if you actually take note, now, not including family, so take family out of it and spouses out of it, but you look at outside of that, your 5 closest relationships, and more often than not, it tends to be more work relationships than outside of work relationships, just because of the way that we live our lives. Yeah. We spend so much time at work; those tend to be the people we hang out with a lot. But if you look at those 5, and you look at yourself in the mix, you're going to find that everyone's right about the same level most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this natural ability to attract others like ourselves, and we get very comfortable with that because we all probably like similar things or interested in similar things, and are just as motivated about certain things. Sure. So, and this is not to knock anybody, but I look at who my association was, especially when I was at my peak with my alcohol consumption. That was just what we did. You said, is it a narrative? Is this like a social narrative? Is this just the way it is because we're all taught that way? Well, it depends what pockets you're hanging out in.
Yeah.
I think there's more that do deal with the things that we're talking about right now, maybe not in a positive way because they're not aware that there's other ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And my friends at that time, that's just what we did. We'd go play around a golf. Well, we're definitely playing the 19th green a lot. We're also going to a hockey game, and we're going to drink a lot, and we're going to go out after work. We're going to drink a lot. Oh, we got a noon meeting. Okay, let's have a couple drinks. Like, it was just so easy, and it was regular, and no one ever said or did anything different. So why make a change if you don't even think change is even a choice? Like, everyone does it this way. So let's just keep doing it, and it's weird, right? Like it really is weird. Like when I start to reflect on it, I'm like, Holy, that's when was I actually making my own decisions about doing my own stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And why was I always so influenced by what the group was doing?
Yeah.
And but again, it's a learning. And so yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I love that quote because I didn't hear it from who you said, Jim Rome. I don't think I've heard it from that, but I always had it stuck in my head that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And I don't know if I picked that up in college, somewhere along the way, but it's always stuck in my head just because whenever I did pick it up, I'm always looking around, just like, who am I hanging out with, and just this where I want my life to be leading and stuff. And yeah, I've not reached some of my goals yet in life or whatever, but I know I'm going down a great path right now.
Yeah.
So to speak.
It's huge.
But yeah, and some people just, and like you were saying, that they're scared, they don't want it to change. They get stuck in a comfort zone, and that they're hanging out with the right, they have bigger goals or bigger aspirations in their life, but like, I'm going to stay with my little social clan here and never going to try to get out of it, either because they're scared of change or they're scared of success, which I'm surprised. I've heard that somewhere too, that people are actually scared of being successful in life.
That's right.
What the hell? What?
Yeah. It's crazy. When you look at fears, it's fear of success, fear of failure, right? Fear of change. Like there's so many different fears. And the crazy thing is a lot of it can be rationalized, right? Like I love, there's actually a great TED talk by Tim Ferriss, and he shares this exercise in this TED talk called fear setting. And the whole idea is just, whatever that thing is that's really intimidating you, it's like, go through the what if game. Well, what if I did that? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Like you brought up the stand-up comedy reference before about comedians maybe taking a shot before they take the stage. Well, last fall, I did a stand-up comedy course. And at the end of the course, there's a showcase where you have to do a 5-minute set with the other comics that were in the course. So we have an audience of 160 people that we don't know. There were some friends there, of course, but the majority of people are people you don't know, and you're doing this for the first time. I'll tell you, it was probably one of the most scary and it was the scariest and most intimidating thing I've done.
I don't doubt it.
And it was challenging, right? But here's the thing, like, we all have the ability to do hard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We all do.
I agree.
And this idea of limiting beliefs, it's wild how it sits there. And so when I think back to Tim Ferriss's exercise, I found myself doing this. Is like, okay, I'm going to get up there. What is the worst that can happen to me up there on stage? What's the worst? Well, could I die? No, very unlikely. I'm not going to die, And I'm like, well, that's the worst that could really happen. I mean, yeah, I could bomb. No one laughs. Like, whatever. It is what it is. But really, at the end of the day, that was like the worst I could imagine happening. And I was okay with that. I released it. I was like, oh yeah, I can do this, and it's just a neat exercise. When you actually rationalize your fear, you realize a lot of the fears that we have are very irrational.
Yeah.
They make no sense. Like the statistics show that our fears are, they're unwarranted and unvalidated, so why are we so afraid of it?
We make up a lot of those fears. We can't most people can't get out of our own way, and I've been there, done that, but I wanted to ask though, just because I try to keep up with comedy, and I went to a comedy show probably last month, but just 5 minutes, like, I feel like that would be so intense.
Like 5 hours.
But somebody go up there and say, hey, be funny for 5 minutes. I just couldn't imagine just the stress and stuff, like, even if you've been practicing, just like you said that.
Yeah.
But you go up, even, the big dogs they were on the scene right now, they talk about bombing as they're working out their materials and stuff.
Yes.
I couldn't imagine, man. It just takes a lot of cojones,
Yeah, well, thank you. And it was either that or just a whole bunch of lack of them. But what I mean by that is, like, I had to literally just take it all out of it, right? And just be okay with whatever came. And, it was hard, but it was very rewarding at the same time, because I had asked myself, I was ready to do something that would challenge me. And I racked my brain trying to figure out what was the most intimidating and scary thing I could possibly do right now.
Yeah.
And as I started to go through the options, I was like, well, stand-up comedy. I've always thought, like, wow, that's amazing as an art form, as a performance art. Like, it's just amazing to have the ability to make people laugh, to also make people think at the same time. It's awesome, but man, it scared the crap out of me. Right. And I was like, okay, well, I got to do it. I got to do it. Cause I would find myself saying to myself, I can't do that. I'll never be able to do that. And I used to say that about comedy. That was the way I would say. I would speak to myself like, I can't do that. That would be impossible. No way. And I've become much more aware of these thought patterns and habits of talking to myself and saying no before I've even asked myself, well, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And, this isn't something that's just unique to me. We all go through this. We all have these little voices in our heads that says, there's no way you can do that.
Sure.
Don't say yes to that. That's impossible. You can't do that. And I'm like, you know what? You just got to turn that script around and just say, well, why not? Why can't I do that?
Yeah.
What is actually holding me back from doing that? Rather than trying to justify why we can't do something, why don't we justify why we can?
Yeah.
But
I agree 100%.
It's a shift of perspective, right?
I agree 100%. I'm borrowing this from Jordan Peterson, and he talks about that nobody wants to, take that first step because they're going to look like a fool, and nobody wants to look like a fool. At anything, they're trying something new. Unless you have the outliers out there like LeBron James who just goes up with talent or whatever. But yeah, it's scary, and you can always make 1,000 reasons why to say no to something just because of exactly what you're saying, that, hey, I don't want to look like a fool. I don't want to bomb. I don't want to, be set back and be made fun of, but that's part of the, I guess, the road to success, I guess you could call it. And that's how I've learned, is like learn from my mistakes, look like an idiot, you can't be afraid. And I like doing challenges and stuff, I think they're fun. You find out a lot about yourself, you learn something new, and it's something you can take with you on. It's like, hey, how did my body change? How did my mind change at this time? Like last October, I cut out caffeine and alcohol, no more. So yeah. And it was one of the hardest things I did. Like, not so much the alcohol, but just the caffeine. It was like, that was really intense just because. Yeah.
I can only imagine, man. I've done that a couple times, and it's hard.
But I felt great, after, a week or so. I felt like I don't even need it, and now I'm glad I did it, because I would drink coffee constantly. Like, I would drink it all day if you let me. And it was just one of those things that I was sitting at work, just might as well pour another cup. Why not? Then on weekends and stuff, you meet up with your friends until you get a cup of coffee. And it's like, well, I've already had 4 today. What's one more? So, but now I just need one small one and I'm cool. And that's what, I guess my point was that you learn a lot about yourself, just trying new things in life, and don't worry about being looking like a fool, even though most times you will.
I love how you said that, because it's the simplest way to really present this idea, this concept. And again, we're just talking about ideas and concepts and things that have worked for us or things that we've observed. And the thing is as much as we hear all these things, which is awesome, for those that listen and watching, it's like, this is great. This is good information. Yeah. But you know what makes the information even better? When you actually try some of these things and you apply it to your own life, and you monitor, how does it work? Because some of the things that you and I have talked about today, Chris, it's probably not going to work for everybody. Oh. Not even work for anybody. Chances are one of the things we've shared today will make a difference for someone, though. But you got to do it. You got to trust enough in yourself that if I try this, good things might happen.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
Yeah. And it just, and actually, you made me think about something here, because I know you just came back from a workout, so I think you'll appreciate this. But the idea of regret is a really powerful concept, right? Like just the whole idea of regret. Like, regrets are usually a negative, right? Like, we see it as a negative. It's something that we wish that we might have done or experienced, but we didn't. And so we regret missing out on that opportunity, whatever it may be. Now, because we're focused on having no regrets, or trying to live a life with as little regret as possible, both the good and the bad, right? Because there's lots of things I've done that I regret, but there ain't no changing it.
On that, brother.
I won't do it again, or at least I keep telling myself that. But here's the thing: what are things in our lives we never regret doing, especially when we do them? Well, you just came back from a workout. Have you ever regretted doing a workout?
No, well, at the time I probably did, when I was like huffing and dying.
Right.
But after it was over, I was like, I'm glad I did it,
That's right. You feel accomplished. Yeah. You feel like you've done something for yourself. And this is the neat thing about self-care. It's like, it still falls on us to do the action, to do the thing that's going to improve our health, our well-being, our mental state, our emotional state. It's still up to us to do whatever that thing is. But if we do it repetitively, and we rarely ever regret doing those actions, because it makes us feel good as soon as we've done them. Mm-hmm. And I often equate, like, I'll have, some of my clients, I'm like, well, today, this week, every lunch, I want you to have a big bowl of greens and veggies and you're going to put some lean protein on there with some avocado oil or coconut oil or whatever dressing you want, as long as it falls within our parameters. But I want you to eat that for lunch. And, I've never had a client ever message me back and say, Dai, this salad you've been making me eat all week, I really regret it. Like, I've never heard it. I've never, ever heard that. Right. And I think we have to understand that there's certain things that we do that is very good for us, and we'll never have the feeling of regret. In fact, we have the opposite feeling. Mm-hmm. We have a feeling of accomplishment, fulfillment, and the fact that, I did something good for myself today. Yeah. That is where I want people to lean into, because that's a proactive approach to living our life, rather than being on the reactionary side where we're regretting the things and we make a promise never to do that thing again, or we have fear or concern around some of the choices that we make. And it's like, no, I'll never do that again. And yikes, it can become a really ugly mess, right?
No, I don't doubt it. And I'm currently reading Atomic Habits. I don't know if you read
James Clear.
Yeah. And it was kind of one of what you were talking about. I'm early into it, but just that, you do one thing at a time that was good, and do it the next day again, and do it the next day. And over time, even though it's like a small little thing, just having, like you just said, a salad for lunch, over time, that's eventually going to build up into something where you want it to. And I guess my point is that I think too many people don't realize that if you keep making good decisions, respecting your goals, respecting yourself, and getting to where you want to be, that they want the shortcut now, that, they're not willing to wait and work for it. That, no, if I don't see it, I've had a client, I coach CrossFit too on the side. Yeah. And so, if, somebody's just like, hey, I got to pull up, I've been here 2 weeks, just what, I understand. It's great. I'm glad you've been here for 2 weeks, but I think a lot of people just don't understand that, hey, it takes a lot of hard work and effort and grind and a lot of things you do outside of the gym in order to get that pull up. It's just not going to happen. I would love to take the red pill or the blue pill or whatever and get a pull up and be able to join the Olympics or whatever. Do, but it's just not that easy as much as we want it to be,
That's a great point. It does. It takes work, right? It takes consistent effort. And, but the cool thing is, on that note about the pull-up, I always laugh at that, because I'll often tell my clients, I know you can't do any pull-ups now. And to get your first is going to be the most work you ever put in. Mm-hmm. Because that's the only time in your life you'll have 100% improvement. Like, really, like,
that makes sense. Yeah,
you do a second pull up, it's diminishing returns, right? Like, it will never be as good as going from 0 to 1.
Sure, I've never looked at it like that, but you're right.
But that's the coolest part, though, right? And that's why I like to let them know when I frame it up. It's like, listen, we can work towards a pull up. It might take a while. Yeah, but we're going to get you there. And it's 100% improvement once you hit that milestone. And then after that, it's like, well, it just gets diminishing returns after the fact, right? Like but that's just tongue in cheek. Of course, you still see progress, but that it's never as challenging as it was doing the first one.
Yeah.
0 to 1 is a massive change. And I think that's what people have to take account. It's like the very first time you do a new habit, that's a big deal. It's a huge deal. But to really see this and experience the benefit, you got to recommit every day. I commit again to doing this. I commit again. And then eventually one day you wake up and you just do it. You're not even thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And that's the idea of going from habitual to ritual, and that's where it becomes a lifestyle, it becomes automatic. Yeah. Like, do you really think about working out?
No, it's a routine for me.
You just do it.
Every day after work.
And I love that, because it's become a ritual. It's part of your life. It's just what you do. It's like brushing your teeth, drinking water. It's just something that I do every day because it makes me feel good and it keeps me optimal. Yeah. And also, you and I both know a workout. We're only ever one workout away from feeling better.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild. People talk about all these pills, and listen, I've dealt with depression all my life and anxiety and all the other stuff. Like, I get it. I totally get it. But if you're relying just on, pharmaceuticals to manage that, you're missing out on so much, because there are healthier ways of tapping into the feel-good hormones without needing to manipulate them. But you do both together, and it's even better. The science has proven it. It's like, I'm not saying pharmaceuticals aren't good. They are. They serve a point. There's a chemical mismatch in some of our brains, and that can balance things out. It can even things out. But if that's the only thing that you're doing and you're not doing all the other stuff, you're missing out on the even greater benefit, right? Like, and they've shown that, with medical intervention, or certain pharmaceuticals along with a healthy lifestyle, that's the best way to get your mental health into a really thriving state if you're dealing with medications, et cetera. But, I'm not here to talk about that, but I just wanted to drop that hint because I know it can feel very isolating and a lot of us feel alone with our mental health challenges. But the cool thing is most people have one. Most people are challenged mentally and emotionally at various points in their day or week. Like, we can all relate to this.
Yeah.
However, how often do we open up about it?
Not very much.
Not very much,
Fair.
Which leaves us feeling like no one understands this. I'm alone in my suffering. No one will understand me. No one else is dealing with this problem. So I can't talk about it. And this, again, is a part of that narrative, right? This way that maybe it's been rolling. Like, I grew up, I watched the men in my life, and my dad included. My dad's a great guy. He was amazing, and very caring, very thoughtful, very kind, but also very stoic. He didn't convey a lot of emotions. And as such, I watched this. I learned this. I never saw my dad cry.
Yeah.
And so I also grew up with the belief that, you don't cry. I'm a boy. I'm a man now. I don't cry. And so some of these things have been role modeled. And if you never showed anything different, and yet I would beat myself up about it. It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It's just what I learned. I didn't have enough information or knowledge or understanding, to even create new wisdom. And so, for those that are listening to this, like, the cool thing is you're part of this conversation right now. Hopefully there's some things starting to light bulbs going off, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe, gosh, there's other people that deal with this stuff too. Holy smokes. Like, maybe I can go find some of those people, those communities, and belong to one of those, and
yeah.
That is the part that actually helped me the most in the last 12 years with the different communities that I belong to.
Yeah.
Because wanting to make a change is one thing when you do it by yourself, but when you have other people that are there rallying you, supporting you, but also you can support in return, it creates this camaraderie, that's so powerful. And I have to give my hats off to CrossFit, me being a CrossFitter as well. Like, the community is remarkable.
It is. Yeah. You find yourself a good community, man. You'll go far.
It's awesome. It's awesome. But this applies not just to fitness. It applies to everything, and I think, these last 2 years have been really challenging for many of us because a lot of the communities that we were used to plugging into, especially in real life, some of those didn't pivot, right? They didn't go to online. So they just went away.
I agree.
And now we're left like, what do I do now? And it's been a challenging couple of years for a lot of people, and I'm just, knocking on wood and hoping that everything continues on the path that we're on now, and the world opens up and we all get back to normal. That would be great.
As you were talking, I was thinking that I had a couple different thoughts, but, I saw a bar, or I guess it was a line graph today, that I listened to this podcast called Breaking Points. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's basically like a news podcast. And
cool.
Yeah, they touch on, like, that's how I get my news for the day. They touch on like some hot topics or whatever. But one of the things was that I was talking about mental health. And since I think it was 2004, just how in high school students, like, mental health issues have gone up. And I forgot like exactly how they researched it or got the study or whatever. But I guess my question for you is, do you think we're just going to keep seeing this increase with mental health issues just because of social media and life? Just people thinking, like what we kind of touched on earlier, like, this is what my life should be like. And if it's not, people get stuck in their own way and then don't talk to anybody and just like, hey, if I don't get this, then my life's over. So screw it,
I think, well, Chris, to be fair, I think, it's interesting when you see data and reports like that. I'm always curious. I'm like, well, how many people were open to sharing back then, about this? Because, it's not like now we're mental health. A lot of the big telecom companies, like up here in Canada, we have Bell Mobility, and Bell is a massive company here in Canada. It's one of our largest telecom companies. So it's like a Virgin, right? Or AT&T, I should say.
I'm with you.
More like an AT&T. And they run a mental health initiative. It's a nonprofit, but they really blast it out there. And they call it's the Bell Mobility Let's Talk Day. And it's this whole idea about let's talk about mental health. And they've been running this for years, but now it's become very much mainstream. It is mainstream. You can't help but see people talking about mental health all over the place now, almost to the point where it's almost becoming a cliche, right? Like we hear the term all the time. So I think, if we're going to interview youth today versus youth of, 10, 15 years ago, I'm just wondering how many of them were even aware of the conversation back then. Because I think as we're becoming more and more aware, and as we normalize the conversation, it allows us to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think we're sort of in that critical point right now where, yes, a lot of media is talking about it. Individuals are talking about it. There's lots of organizations and support networks popping up to support people with this. So do I think it's going to continue to trend in the upward trajectory that it's been on, especially the last 5 years? Probably for a little bit. I'm going to be optimistic, and I hope that we get to a place where we recognize that, okay, maybe it's the way we're consuming media and the way we're connecting online all the time. Maybe there's a healthier way of managing that does keep our mental health in a good place. I don't necessarily believe that we're there yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we're still figuring it out. I mean, we're still coming up with new ideas and new apps keep coming out just to make things easier, whatever. But yeah, I agree that it's the wild, wild west, and I feel like the internet's still kind of the wild, wild west too. And obviously it's one of those things that if you give somebody a hammer, they can either build a house with it or they're going to go smack themselves.
That's right.
Yeah, smack themselves in the knee with it, I guess it applies to almost anything, but it's how you use, it's a tool. It's how you use the tool. And
that's exactly right.
You can either make it, in a positive note, or you can, become addicted to porn or whatever. And that's kind of what you were saying. If that's, you found alcohol as kind of your thing to relieve stress or whatever, and people find that or whatever they're looking at on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's hard. I mean, if we're now, I think the conversation, it is being normalized, right? It's getting to a place where we're more comfortable talking about it. I still don't think it's to the point that it needs to be, but I think it's going there. It's trending that way. And that's a good thing. But, I think it's actually just having, like, I look at my own daughters, right? They're now 17 and 19, but they've grown up with devices, pretty much most of their life. They've always had computers around, and
sure.
And, they've always seen mom and dad with cell phones, and they both got their own phones when they were like 10 and 12. Right. And so they've grown up with these devices, and we used to have conversations with them, not only about mental health, but also about the pressures and social pressures, but also how to have a healthy relationship with electronics, specifically social media and internet usage. But as parents, it is our responsibility to have that conversation with our kids. And at the beginning, we did. Did we police it? Yeah. And what I mean by policing, well, we had access. Any platform that they wanted to be on, we had to have full access to it. We had to have all the passwords, all that, until they were 16. When they were 16, yes, you can be private on all that stuff. No problem. We don't need to have access to your accounts, but you got to use it respectively. And in a healthy way that doesn't affect you in a negative. And that was something that we stressed as parents, and I like to say that our kids are in a really good place now at the age that they are, but they have a very different perspective on social media and how to use it. And so, for any parents out there or people that are mentoring or coaching younger people, this is a very, very important conversation to have. Yeah. Is really setting the boundaries around internet use, but also being comfortable enough to open up a conversation on mental health.
Was that something you and your wife talked about? I don't have any kids, but I've read some stuff and articles about how do you govern children's screen time, and you're either the bad guy, or most of the time you're the bad guy, or you get you run to mom and say, oh, I can't get on whatever, dad won't let me. And then mom's like, oh, here, I'll just go ahead and let you. Then, you're even more the bad guy. I mean, is that just a conversation you and your wife had just to say like, all right, this is what I think it should be?
Yeah, we would talk about it first, and then we talk about with the girls, with our kids. So we would usually always, you have to have as they say, a united front. And reason being is like we didn't want the good cop, bad cop situation, and we didn't want to undermine one another, because that also can create challenges. And to be fair, the kids, they would play that card if they could, even if they didn't want to. They, when opportunity presents itself and they can go to mom or go to dad, and they already know dad was probably going to say yes. I don't think mom will say yes. So I won't even ask mom. I'll just ask dad. Like, yeah, and a lot of times we'll get in the habit. What did your dad say? Or I'll say, what did mom say? Was she cool with this? If she's cool with it, I'm cool with it, and so there's just those little things. But, I just want those that are listening or watching this to realize I do recognize the last 2 years have been anything but normal.
Yeah.
And the amount of electronic or screen time, especially online time that kids have been enduring is, higher than in any other period in their lives, especially in the last 30 years because of the pandemic. Like, let's be fair, like, would it be realistic to tell our kids not to be on screens as much during the pandemic? Not really. I mean, it's super hard, especially when you're isolated, you're stuck in a house, can't leave. You can't even go to school. Like, they got to do school from a computer at home. Like, it's been a weird couple of years,
For sure.
but not to say the conversation shouldn't happen, but I do recognize, and I don't want anybody to beat themselves up because of the last 2 years, or maybe the amount of screen time the kids have had in the last 2 years. Because let's be honest, I know that my kids' screen time went up huge. They did. Between school and their social connections, and that was how they stayed connected with friends during lockdowns, and just is what it is. It's but now that we're coming out of it, we're getting right back to setting those healthy boundaries again.
Do you find that people like coming out of it now or don't really know how to act? I guess in a certain way,
Some people.
they've been cooped up, so long. Like I've been here, like talking about comedy at comedy shows, like people heckling the comedians and stuff. And just because they haven't been out in so long, they get out and they're getting wild and crazy. And it's like even at sporting events, when they're attacking the players on there, just because I guess they're out and about and like, they want to release, I guess.
Yes, I think you're right. There is a lot of, let's just say we got pent up energy and we're trying to release some of it.
Exactly.
I have noticed that. I've noticed it in myself, and like where did we go the other day? We finally went out to an event for the first time. It was the Vancouver Wellness Show. It was a couple weekends ago, and it's a really large. It's Vancouver's largest wellness show, but it hadn't happened for 2 years because of the pandemic. Finally happened again, and it was just so interesting seeing a trade show along with the talks and the networking and just all these people. No social distancing, no masks, and it was just like, whoa, this is like COVID. What It was really weird, right? Because I found myself being like, I like this, but there was still that part of me that was ingrained with, should I be a bit concerned? Should I be a little worried here? It's just wild, right? Like we've got some pretty deep rooted conditioning that we've all endured these last 2 years, like masking up, washing our hands, social distancing, yada, yada, yada. So it's going to take us a little bit to unlearn that, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Just because I work in higher education, and they finally released where I'm at the indoor mandate or mask mandate, and it was just kind of like finally, it's like a whole new world. You're walking around, you got to see people's faces again, and not people were just like moving them while they're talking, and it's just man, it just finally became like, okay, we can relax now. It's some sense of normalcy,
That's right.
And I think a lot of people, they like normal. Kind of what we said either. They don't like change. They don't like things going out of their little routine. And I get it. I mean, I have a good routine but if things get kind of wacky, I'm kind of like, oh, wait, it's not the way it's supposed to be. But no, I'm slowly like, the pandemic wasn't that bad on me. I was still able to go to the gym, and in my position, I was still working. So I didn't have full quarantine, I guess. So I didn't feel a lot of the effects. I didn't feel a lot of effects that other people were, that I was reading about and seeing, that I was still able, if I wanted food, I just went and got takeout and came home. So it was, so I felt like I was pretty lucky during these past 2 years, I guess is my point. So
that's pretty fortunate. And, but also, I mean, the fact that you've been able to observe it, right. And being someone that's so connected to your own fitness and health and just well-being, it's great because you can also speak to this really well, but also just be there to support others, right? Like I found that's what I ended up doing a lot, because if I couldn't support myself, I could at least support others. Do you know what I mean by that? Like it's that idea of contribution and helping others is not only cathartic, but it's also very fulfilling for most of us. Most of us like helping other people feel better, feel good, like there's some enjoyment in that, there's satisfaction in that, and so I found myself doing a lot of that during the pandemic, like even my men's groups, making a point of really prioritizing time around that, and also connecting with certain people that I know were feeling challenged, like especially in any ways, but especially professionally, a lot of people initially early on in the pandemic, were losing their jobs or being laid off, or geez, like the mental challenges that come with that. Like it's hard, So I found myself, that was my way of dealing with it at times, was I'll just not focus on me. I'll just focus on other people and help them. That we don't have to focus on my own stuff, like probably not the healthiest things to do, but it really helped me, at least throughout the first 6 months.
This is kind of echoing what you just said, about success and stuff, but just that I remember one of my first jobs, like my, big full-time, big jobs, I guess you want to call it that. Like one of the interview questions, I was asked, what does success mean to you? And I had no clue what to say. I mean, like I was probably, just a little bit out of college. I was finished my internship and stuff. And I was like, I don't know, and so I gave some vague definition, like, because if you completed a task and it was done right and stuff, and it was 100% correct, and you were good. If you completed a job, that means you're successful. And so it wasn't until then, though, I left that interview like, gosh, idiot, why'd you say that? It's one of those things that you like, bomb that one. There's no way I'm getting that job. But I went and thought about it and started looking up stuff. It's like, stuff like next time, if I get asked that again, I'd never heard that before. So I was like, I want to know what I got to say next time.
I want to hear it. What is it? So what's the answer now?
So now it's just like, I always feel successful now. And this is also through life and things I've been doing now that I feel successful when I've actually helped somebody else become successful.
Love that.
Yeah. So it was one of those things that if somebody came and reached out to me about, nutrition, fitness, whatever. I'm not an expert in anything by any means, but I was able to say something to them or hand them like the hammer to go build a house, or don't go hit yourself in the face with it, but to give them success. I was like, hey, that's what that means to me now. I mean, that may not be what, the higher education or business people want to hear, but in my own perspective, that's what I feel like. If I've done something to help somebody and support them, like you just said, support others, it was just like, I feel pretty good about myself now that I was able to do that. So,
see, why I love that, and I really respect that definition, Chris, because it's highly subjective, right? Like it is a personalized response based on where you seek value and feel value. Yeah. Right. Like it's a relationship you have by doing an action that makes you feel successful. Yeah. And I think that's something to take note, because I know I used to define success and it would usually have to follow a bunch of zeros, after a one.
Exactly.
Like that was the easy way of doing it, especially growing up in my 20s. I just believed, well, success, the more money I make, the more successful I'll be.
Yeah.
Right. And then wondering, as I got into my 20s and even into my early 30s, my company was scaling like crazy. And I was drinking more and more, and yet here's the thing: I'm supposed to be like successful, but yet I'm making more money. I guess I can buy butter booze, but I'm not feeling successful, like, and so it's interesting, I think we all have to sort of come to grips with what is the definition to us. Mm-hmm. What does success mean? And more importantly, how does it feel? Right? How does it feel to
how does
us?
It make you feel?
Yeah. And so I loved your answer was awesome, man. That was really well said.
That was just, me just getting out of my own way and actually sitting back and kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, just self-reflecting on myself and learning what's worked for me in life. And like, where do I go from that information and who do I have around me? We're kind of going all full circle here. And just,
that's right.
And if you were probably to ask me that in college right now, it would have been the same thing, what you just said, like, oh, well, if you're making 6 figures a year, you're successful. Or I forgot who even said it, that somebody where I heard it from or whatever, or picked it up, but somebody said, you're not successful unless you own a Rolex. And it was almost one of the things like, well, that's just a status symbol, just to say like, hey, I got the Lambo, I got the Rolex, I'm wearing Gucci. And it's like, there's a lot of fake people who do that. And it's like, they might think they're successful, but they're probably in debt over their head thinking they're cool and stuff, like almost con artist type stuff. But
it's, I was going to call it like the typical digital marketing funnel that we end up down, right? Like, look at my house, look at my car, look at my watch, look at my everything. Like, you can have this too. Just spend $9.99 and it can be yours too, right? Like,
that was the thing for me growing up, that if you had, the big house and, big money paychecks and stuff, that means you're successful. And it's not necessarily it. And, a lot of people I don't know if a lot of people would believe that listening to this right now, but I would hope they do, just because, like you said, you got to find your own success and how to find out how it makes you feel. So ultimately.
Yeah, that's really good that you brought that up too, because success doesn't mean we feel fulfilled. Right. And I think it's because we don't often tie the two together. And what I mean by that is that fulfillment is that feeling of, it's not content. Like, I think content is almost like a downward or a downsell. It's like the downsell version of being happy or joyful, right? It's like, I feel content. I feel okay. Like I feel okay. Like I'm content with this. Like, it's like, to me, it's always been less than happy or less than joy. And I think, success, there's lots of different ways to define it, but really it's understanding, like, how does it make us feel? Like, what is that feeling that we get if we feel that we're successful?
Mm-hmm.
And because I think the feeling's way more attainable than anything else. And we can tie an action to a feeling. And if we can do that, then we can duplicate the feeling, right? Like, because it just do more of that thing and it makes me feel successful. And it's neat when it's not tied to monetary gain, like, not to say that earning money is not a good thing. Earning money is a great thing.
Yeah.
And why? Because it allows us to make more impact as well as support those that really matter to us. Charities that I want to support, I support. Why? Because I have money I can support them with, and when I didn't have money, I would donate time, and energy. Now I don't have less time, so I donate money. Like, it's like, it's like one or the other, but either way, I want to support them. And so we support any way we can.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing. Like, I think just coming from a place of wanting to support, like what you said, you want to make a difference in someone else's life or another organization or a group or, a community.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel successful because it is success to you.
Yeah.
And dude, I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. It's awesome.
It's just, I don't know, exactly how I picked it up, but I just, I guess it's just where I've done stuff in my life and just where it's just like, I reflected on it. It was just, hey,
that's beautiful, man. I think it's great.
And just, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but it's just like, man, I've really found out that's what I like, and it's one of those things that I kind of, when I look back on, it's like, have I really found a lot about myself and what works for me and what do I like and, my passions and stuff like that. But if, and sometimes I used to say that a lot, just like, well, I haven't found my passions and stuff. Or I haven't. Yeah. And it's just like, but if I sit and actually think about it and just, make notes and self-reflect again, you're just like, hey, now I'm getting dialed in now. And part of it was starting this podcast and actually talking these thoughts out and stuff, because, like growing up, I don't really remember sitting around the dinner table and having well articulate, thought out questions. And, my parents might get mad at me for saying this, but it also seemed very materialized based on our conversations in my house. And, it wasn't like, let's talk about, the current trends in the news or whatever. It was just kind of like, what do we want to do this weekend? Or, what do you think about buying this car and stuff like that? Like we're trading our car. But yeah, and it was just like, as I got older, I felt like I never had well articulate, well thought out conversations about anything. I just kind of felt a little social anxiety, like you were talking about earlier. Just like if somebody were to bring up politics or religion, I would like kind of like, ooh, I'm just going to go shady dip out the back here. That way I
totally get that one, man. Yeah. I can relate to that.
And I guess I'm not really sure where I was going with that point, but I guess it was just actually sitting. I guess the whole point of that was just that to actually sit out and say things out loud. And it's just kind of, my brain goes like, oh, now we're hitting some home runs here. Now we got it. We're dialed in. So.
Well said. Either way, I like it. I'm taking something away from our call today, especially. And just this, I'm going to revisit my idea of success. You've inspired me to revisit that definition or at least my understanding of what that is for me. And I think it's so subjective, but also at the same time, it's good for us to have that, it's that nice reminder, because as much as we say success, I often think of success meaning the same as fulfillment.
Yeah.
Like that's success to me. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I've accomplished something that I set out to accomplish and I can continue to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And that's the life I'm trying to live, and to me, that's success is me being able to do what I want, when I want, with whoever I want. And at the same time, make the world a better place. Like if I can do all that, I'm like, hello, this is great. Like I feel successful,
It's like, we were talking about role models. I know we're getting a little short on time here and I wanted to, but shit, I lost my train of thought. So role models. Yeah. We were talking about that earlier, and that you see these role models and you see that, how they're living their lives. And it's kind of like, ooh, I kind of want my life to be like that, and sometimes they say, don't meet your heroes or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, I think if you get, I guess to my point, that if you get an idea of like, hey, this is how I want my life to be, I want to, to go down this road of being a cool fit person with a happy family and a big house and, great kids and the white picket fence and all that stuff. But yeah, and then it's like, hey, what do I have to do to make these small decisions and go down this road, and to lead me there. And like, I sometimes life does, throw curveballs at you and, you got to work around it and stuff. But yeah, I think that's just, you have to get a vision or an idea of what you want in life and just kind of go after it in your own way. And I'm not saying you just go out and, be a terrible person and, steal from people and do that and get it that way. But, hard work takes you far, based on my experience. If you don't mind doing the work, you don't pay your dues, and eventually you hopefully get to where you want to be in life. So
I like it. It's true. I mean, it's often what we do and what we do often that shapes us in our lives, right? And so if we want to, sort of the scientific method, we look at what's the inputs, what's the outputs, well, if I change the inputs, will the outputs change, right? Like it's like, okay, well, I'm putting these in or I'm doing these things and I'm getting this kind of result. If I change the things that I'm doing, will it change the result? Yeah. It's like, Einstein had a bit of a definition around this, like around insanity. If you keep doing the same thing, right? Like, yeah. And it's the same idea though. It's like exactly what we're talking about, right? Like it's being able to at least recognize or at least take a foot backwards, right? A step backwards in our own life to be able to observe and just sort of try to look at things from a different perspective, because when we're living it, it's tough to see anything else. It's just tough, like, because we're in it, it's like, just, this is my everyday. I can't see outside of it. And sometimes that's why we have to remove ourselves to be able to reflect, as you sort of talked about this idea of reflection or introspection.
There you go. That's a good word.
Yeah, it is a good word, but we don't do it that often, do we? I remember the first time in my life, someone asked me, Dai, what do you want? I was like, what do I want? Like to watch on Netflix, or like, what do I want for dinner? Like, what do you mean? What do I want? He's like, well, what do you want for your life? And I was like, oh man, I don't know. I was like, honestly, I was like, I don't know. No one's ever asked me that.
I've been there.
But why don't we ask each other that? Like why? Why don't we ask each like, hey, what do you want for your life, Chris? Like, what is it that you're working for? Like, what is it that you want for you, for your life, for the life that you're building for yourself? Like, what do you want? Like, we never talk about that stuff. We don't usually talk about that. Maybe it's not never, but we don't. No, it's but it's really interesting. Like, it's not just an observation, I got that because it's a question I'll often ask people. It's like, well, hey, what do you want for life? And people always sort of look at me like a deer in headlights initially, like, well, I've never been asked that. And I'm like, great. So if you had to answer it, what would you say? And it's
to think about.
But it's good to think about it. And I think that's the thing. Is it creating the space? And it's also why I believe in the act of journaling, and I'm not saying write pages and pages and pages, but if you feel inspired to do it, go ahead. But just to have a habit, set a timer for 5 minutes and just have a blank piece of paper just to answer a single question. People always say, well, what questions? I'm like, well, man, there's lots of different questions you can ask. You can say, what do I want? Yeah. What kind of human being do I want to be? What kind of family man do I want to be? And again, I'm speaking as a man that identifies as a man. So when I use those kind of masculine terms, please know that. Like, I got to put the disclaimer. My 19-year-old daughter reams me every time I don't say that. Oh my gosh. Because she's like, Dad, you can't just say that. And I'm like, well, I'm a man who identifies as a man. Oh, you didn't tell me that. And I'm like, okay, I'll tell you that. Like, so anyway, sorry, I go off on these.
It's all good, man.
I'm still learning all about
I am too. Trust me, I am too.
I'm figuring it out. I can only imagine in education, it's very real, right?
Yeah. Well, in my position, I have it pretty good. I don't have to deal with it a lot, but in other areas, like I see the outside looking in, it's I'm glad I'm not in that group. I'm glad I'm not that guy having to deal with it right now.
It's hard. Like, we're all sort of trying to navigate it as best we can. And there's so much change happening so quickly. It's hard to keep up with it all, like that's where I struggle. I'm just like, I just can't keep up with all of it, and to understand how does everybody want to be identified as, and it's like, okay, well, where's it appropriate to ask this? Like, and that's what I struggle with too at times. Like, well, I meet someone for the first time. Well, how can I refer to you? Yeah. What pronoun? Like, is that an everyday conversation? Maybe it should be. I don't know. Like, I'm just, it's been great because I got teenage daughters that are right in the thick of things, and they're educating me. They educate me about, just being a dad. Also, well, pronouns and then how to use TikTok, it's like, it's pretty much, that's what I learned from my kids. Right. But Anyways, I love what we've talked about today, man. It's like, these are great conversations. And my invitation to everybody out there is like, try journaling, ask yourself a question. What do I want? And just see what comes out. What do you write down on a piece of paper?
Yep.
You know, that it'd be a great exercise to start your journaling journey on. And because until you start answering it, you just got to be happy with whatever you get. You know, whatever comes your way, just be happy with it. Because unless you're asking for it, you're probably getting exactly what you need.
Exactly. And to your point with the pronoun stuff, that this was probably a year ago during the pandemic. I went to go shake somebody's hand, and they were like, "Ooh, like no, I don't shake hands." And I was like, "Oh, we got to relearn how to do all this again." So, we don't
it's so true. Yeah, the elbows and the ankle.
Like, what do you want me to do here? Like, what do you want me to do? I don't know. Like, it's just habit. But before we get off here, I did want to ask though, because one thing I did about you, that you say you date your wife.
Yeah.
And I was curious about that. Just like, what do you mean when? Is it just how you?
Well,
I'll let you explain.
No, that's a great question, Chris, and I appreciate you asking. I sort of alluded to you beginning of our call, like just language, right? It's so important.
Okay.
Especially our relationship with words and terms and how we understand it. But I'm also like, my background's in English literature and philosophy, so you can probably get an idea where I go with this stuff. As much as I've been in fitness my entire adult life, that's my academic background, is in the arts. But what I find really interesting about the term, just this idea of dating my wife, is there's a lot of intentionality with that, right? By saying that, putting it out there, it's also a reminder to me about the importance of always trying to bring my best version forward, especially for the person that I've committed to spending the rest of my life with. And so, yeah, I've been dating my wife for 22 years. Because when you're dating somebody, you're always discovering new things.
True.
And you're always, think about it, when you're just starting to date somebody, you're always acting as your best self.
Oh, yeah.
always, right?
Yeah,
it's like, opening the door, like all those things, right? You're doing it all.
For sure.
And, but why do we stop doing that? Right? Why do we stop doing that? So it's just the intentionality with the terms, with the words. People be like, "How long have you been married to your wife?" Well, actually, I've been dating her for 22 years. People are like, "Oh, you date your wife?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Don't you date yours? Like, and people are like, "Oh, I like that." And so the amount of people that we've met and now tell me that's how they refer to one another, I love it. And it was my wife that started. I'm giving her full credit. She's the one that started this. She's the one that got me onto it. And because you think I'm big on language, she's huge on language. Like, to the point that, you talk about self-talk. Like, if you're not talking positive to yourself, well, you got to give yourself a talk, like, it's like, she's so good at this stuff. And anyway, so I'm very grateful.
I like that. That's what I was kind of thinking, but I like that. I like that perspective on it.
Thanks.
Makes me, now, because I just got out of a relationship but it makes me look at, my future relationships. Ooh, that makes perfect sense. You don't always have to say just we're married or just because we're dating. Yeah. And it
intentions,
makes like way you put
intentions. It. Yeah. Like, but it's also intentions, just, setting our intentions. Like, you Olympic lift like I do, and before you step up to the bar, especially if you're going for like a PR, right. Or a PB, like, you have to set an intention.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to get your head into it. You got to set an intention, get focused, set yourself up, and then go. And you can't flinch on it, especially doing a snatch, right? Like, there's no flinching on a snatch. You screw that up, you're going to lose it. You're off by 2 millimeters, you're done. You're dumping it, right? Like, well, when you get to those kind of loadings, but it's intentionality. And so we get that in sport. We understand having the intention, the focus, creating the flow state. Like, you still need the intentionality. And we can have that intention with every area of life, every area. Especially relationships, and so that's my invitation to everybody, is just be very intentional with your language, how you speak to yourself, but especially how you speak to others.
So I like that. I'm going to make sure I pass that along for the next relationships. But all right, last question, and I'll let you get out of here. This apparently this question is breaking the internet. We were talking about it's something stupid. So
let's hear it.
We were talking about the gym tonight, and I was like, I'm going to ask I'll ask him that, see what his thoughts are. So apparently,
sorry, Siri. I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll say something with S, and she starts talking at me. So she was just talking.
Answer the question. So, all right, let me make sure I phrase right. Okay, so are there more doors or wheels in the world?
Holy, that's a great question. I guess it depends on how we classify a door.
So the way it was classified to me is like any door that you walk through with a regular door, that's a door. And then wheel was like a steering wheel, and like wheels on a Hot Wheels car.
Oh, geez.
And regular cars. So I was like, what doors or wheels? I don't even know who came up with this question, but I'll let you.
I mean, how do you even validate the question? Like, how do you validate the response? It's like one of those ones where it's like, is there even a right or wrong? I don't know. But
I keep saying I'm going to look it up, but I haven't yet. So
I want to say, like, I see if you're going to go like out of the physical, I was going to say definitely doors. I was going to, because like the doors of our mind, right? Like there's so many doors you can go through. Like I was going to get really cryptic with it, but you know what? If I had to just answer it, I'd probably have to go with doors. Like I think there's got to be more doors. Well, no, you know what? You're right. Wheels. There's got to be more. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't either.
You just broke my mind. What is the answer?
I don't know. From what they told me tonight, that most guys will say doors, and I think what she told me that most women are saying wheels.
Okay.
So and I didn't really understand the logic behind it. I keep saying I'm going to go look it up, and I always forget about it until now. I actually go look it up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to as well. Plus, I gotta say, I love your X-wing fighter.
Oh, dude, yeah, man, that's
awesome.
Not only do I do fitness, but I do some Legos.
Dude, that's a Lego. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
I love it. Well, I've got like I'm more into the comic side of things. Hence, you can see behind me like the posters and stuff.
But I've done the Batmobiles for Legos. Like that's dude.
That is so cool. Well, I love it. I think that's so pimp. That's awesome.
Hold on, man. Like, so this is my next one. It's like the new Batmobile from.
Oh, dude, I saw that on online the other day. It's like, oh my gosh, that's cool.
So yeah,
that is awesome. That's like the Burton Batmobile, right? Like the.
No, I know the Burton. No. This is like from the new movie.
Oh, this is the new one. Yeah. There's the Dark Knight one. Yeah.
I can't grab it right now, but.
Dude, that's so. Oh man, I love it. I had no idea. I didn't know that was a Lego. I thought it was a model. Those look so good.
Yeah, they're Legos, dude. That's my thing. Like when I'm just don't have anything else to do, I just sit around and it makes sense to me.
It's good. It's creative too, though. Like those creative outlets, I think are so critical, and that's awesome. Oh, right on, man.
But yeah, I'm a comic book nerd too, though. I got all the movies. I've been watching all the TV shows. Yeah, man.
How do you like the new Moon Knight?
It's crushing, man. I'm loving what they're doing with it. It's kind of like a little horror kind of sci-fi.
Yes.
Only the 2 episodes, and I never did know anything about Moon Knight until these episodes. And then after I watched the first one, started going doing some backtrack, watching YouTube videos.
Yeah,
he's cool, man. Like I like it. I dig it, the Egyptian god kind of thing.
Yes. Mark Spector's a cool character too. Like I hope they go down that path a bit more about the Mark Spector side of things, because he's just badass.
Yeah.
He's like so badass.
Based on the second episode, it looks like that's how we're going to get. So
yeah, it looks that way. It's I'm liking it. I think Disney's just got a secret formula there, and it's just like, let's just go print some money.
Yeah.
I swear that's all they do, man. I'm just like, but it's good. I'll give my money to them. I do.
I like it
freely.
Man. It's a little bit different compared to all the others. I watched Hawkeye and the other one before that, the Captain America and the Falcon or whatever. But this one's got that more kind of horror, kind of thriller tick to it, which
it does.
And maybe
I think it's got a cool story to it too, though, right? Like
maybe
how they're unraveling it, because they're keeping it really like, anyways, it's did you see Morbius?
No, I want to go see it, but I've read all the reviews and all the memes that came out. And did you see it?
I did, and it's not as good as a Marvel movie. I love the character Morbius, but I think Jared Leto does a great job, but just the story was a bit flat. That's all. That's
what I was seeing. And then, Jared Leto gets a bad rap on stuff. He was the Joker in Suicide Squad. And I kind of, I get it, what he did, the gold gangster kind of stuff.
Yes.
But I liked it. He wasn't terrible, but he got ate alive on that one.
I thought he was pretty good, though, as the Joker. I mean, he did an okay job. I think a lot of us are just so conditioned to some of the other actors that played the Joker. And it's
that's such a great point, because I don't remember when that movie came out, but I don't know if he was following up Heath Ledger right then. But it's, I think it's what it was. And I think if you're following that up, I mean, even when Joaquin Phoenix came out, like people were worried about him as being the Joker, but I think he crushed it too. So
he did too. Yeah, Joaquin, man, that guy's like, he's whole next level. Like, was such a great actor, huh? Man. Sorry, we're totally geeking out here, and I know we're deviating. We'll have to have a secondary conversation just to nerd out.
That's good. Let's take this thing home.
All right.
If people want to find you, more about you and all that good stuff, where do they do all that stuff?
Well, the cool thing about having a unique name, which I didn't think was very cool when I was younger, because you can imagine the kids can be pretty mean.
Oh, yeah.
And so the first name's Dai, yes, Dai, and last name is Manuel, Manuel. And so it's a Welsh first name, Portuguese last name, but I'm just Canadian. So that's what I say to everybody. And if you can type my name in on any social platform, you'll find me because it's unique and I'm the only one with it. And so that's why I say it's actually kind of cool to have a unique name now.
Nice.
My website's just daimanuel.com. There's about 1,800 articles now. I've been blogging for about 14 years, all geared to helping people live their best life. So it's all content to help you and help people with where they're at. And so I always say, go there if you're looking for more on things that we talked about today. And then if you want to have a conversation online, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Those are my 3 platforms I'm the most active on. One of these days I will be on TikTok. My daughter is teaching me, but not right now. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get into the dancing, but I do really think it's a great platform for short messages, right? Like I think it's going to be the next YouTube, but for small format videos, because their algorithm is just way better than everybody else's. So
we'll hold those short attention spans, like 7 seconds. All right.
Yeah, right. We're competing with goldfish now. Anyways, I'm excited about it. But listen, I just want to acknowledge you, Chris. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, to connect with you and your audience, and love what you're putting out to the world, man. Keep doing it. And if I can be of any support, please let me know how.
We'll have a round 2 on comics and other.
Yeah, all right. I'm in. Dude, I'm in. That'd be great.
We'll send people down that road a bit, making their best life with that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, why not? It's great.
But thank you, dude. You're a badass person, man. I'm glad we did this. So
likewise. And really appreciate the connection, and looking forward to reconnect again soon.
Good deal. All right, folks, we're out of here. Anything else you want to say? You good? Okay. Peace.
Good.
All right, right here. Be good to yourself, folks.